So welcome, everyone. This is our July meeting for Women IT Pros, and the topic today is my favorite mistake and recovery, with a shout out to the song. Is my slide showing? Because I want to make sure that's not a mistake. Okay, good. We're there. So we really encourage you to participate. We have a very active chat window through these things, so feel free to throw stuff in there, and we'll kind of pull stuff out of the chat window as appropriate. There may be times when it's appropriate to come off mute and let your voice be heard here. And we definitely encourage you to go out to Shauna Chee's awesome diversity and tech site at techcommunity.microsoft.com. There is a user group site there, and you can start threads. You can kick off questions. You can reach out to your peers there in the IT Pro and the Women IT Pro space. So especially for right now, we're going to just take a minute, and in the chat window, please give us your intro. Tell us what you do. You don't have to be an IT Pro. Everyone's welcome. If you have a Twitter handle or LinkedIn profile that you'd like to share, go ahead and put that out there. We'd love to make sure we can follow you and find you and friend you. And tell us where you live. Maybe you didn't realize it, but there's someone who lives in not creepy close, but just tell us kind of the general area. And if you're going to be going to any user groups or conferences, let people know, or feel free to start up a thread on that Women IT Pro site so that we can get together. And if you tell me in the US that you are going to a user group, I will get in touch with you. If you let me know like your US mail address, I will send you one of these beautiful Women IT Pro stickers, and you can have that for your laptop. So we'll give you just a minute here, and while you're typing your intro here, just who you are, what kind of job you do, and Twitter and LinkedIn. I also want to let you know about our upcoming calls. We had our first APAC call for women in Australia and New Zealand earlier this week, and so we're working on getting that recording live. Their next call is going to be August 22nd. And then in the US in August, we have Trice Johnson talking about purposeful mentorship. And there's a great app that Shauna can probably tell you about in the chat window if you want to get hooked up with a mentor. September 27th, Donna Sarkar, amazing woman. If you haven't heard her, do not miss it. Talking about imposter syndrome. And then today, I just talked with Laura Derbies-Rogers, who is a Power Apps MVP, and she's going to tell you how you can use Power Apps to simplify a lot of stuff in your life there. And we're working on setting up some Europe calls. So definitely love to see you. If you're interested in starting a call, either for a region or for a technology focus, let me know, because we can get you set up with that. And Ignite is happening November 4th through the 8th. And Shauna is running this amazing diversity and tech pre-day. I just signed up for it. I have to do a little bit of MVP stuff in the morning, but I will be there as soon as I possibly can. I cannot wait for this. And the whole week is just going to be full of great content, great diversity content, and great technical content. So register soon, because Ignite is going to sell out. All right, so how are we doing in the chat window? Did we get everybody introducing? Are we getting everybody in the room here? Sorry, I'm missing my windows. Is there chat happening?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, for some reason I'm not seeing it, but
I can't see it either.
Huh.
Yeah, the meeting chat, yes.
And people are talking to each other?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, what I'm going to do is we're going to turn it over to Navrioska for a few minutes, and then turn it over to Denise, and then I'm going to talk about one of my great mistakes and really share a lot of the recovery that I've been going on through all of this process. So, Navrioska, go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everybody. So I make mistakes. I wouldn't say like all the time, but the ones that I can remember were pretty bad. So I'm going to brief you over the story that stumbled upon Kathy, and that's the reason why I'm here today. And it was early stage when I started being a network engineer. So we're talking about 2011, right after I graduated from college. I have like a computer science that splits like programming, electronics, and network. So I went for a network on an internet service provider. And before I joined that company, I always wanted to work for that company. So that was my dream job, like Google for me. So I I started applying in every possible way. I did physical resumes. I spammed people that I stumbled upon and told me that they worked there. And eventually, through a recruiter from my sister job that knew a recruiter on their end, I got the interview and then the job. Right. So I was pretty cocky. I guess like most people when you like freshly out of college thinks they know everything. So I had that attitude of, oh yes, of course, I'm the boss. I'm a girl engineer. I'm gonna rock this job. And I kind of did. I don't really think that I knew what I was doing. I thought that I did, but I didn't really. Because I was learning, right? I was book knowledge, not on field knowledge. And I was rocking it, right? It was a tiny task because it was major, so they don't give you a lot of responsibility when you're a junior engineer. But I was, yeah, so one day at a time and flashing. And one day they gave us a really sensitive change to do on a Friday afternoon that I didn't have time to actually like reason over what the process was or what specifically the impact will be if I did it wrong, because we didn't have that time, right? So my director split the commands we need to apply to everybody on route reflectors. I don't know if somebody is on networking here, but so they're the equipment's in charge to like give away all the routes to every other equipment on the network. So it's like the bosses, they're God on a level. They explode and you're pretty much down. Not to say a bad word, but down. So we were all splitting on teams with the piece of command that we need to apply and apply all the things. And I'm frustrated because I'm a planner, right? So I have to understand what I'm doing before executing, but I didn't have that time because we just had to do it. And I exploded both drive reflectors and the complete network went down. So no sales, no internal network, no phones, no services, nothing. The ISP was not selling money for more than an hour. That means that whatever that was at least 25 times my salary of a year, the loss that I caused the company. And when I saw the terminal that was not going up or down or anything, I couldn't think anymore. So I was like typing in, like trying to make it back up. My boss came in, like he moved me away. He tried to do the same thing. And we realized that we needed to hard reboot the equipment. So I had to go physically and hard reboot the equipment to bring it back up because I didn't save the configuration, thanks to the universe. So I rebooted it, right? You reboot a router, you haven't saved the configuration, you go back to the initial state. Everything came back up. The people started working again because no internal network means no phones, no mails, nothing to do. So people were like on tiny island, just chilling around me, looking at me like, hey, you blow up the network. Because they can't, when you're a junior, they always ask you if you blow up the network. But I did. So it wasn't fun. And that happened. And I felt like dying. And I felt like I needed to find another career. And I for sure knew that I was going to get fired that day. Because I would fire me. Right. And my boss called me in after the CTO had left his office asking for my head. And I was like, it's happening, right? So in my mind, I was already building the speech to tell my mom that I got fired on the first year in, like before the first year in, and kind of like thinking about careers, choices, not on IT, all of that, because, you know, that's how the mental process goes when you're a perfectionist. And he didn't fire me. And I was in shock and I couldn't understand why. So I asked. So I asked my boss to fire me, kind of like, why are you not firing me? And he said that it was a mistake and it was part of learning and it was okay. And I couldn't fully understand that. And of course, I was paranoid of touching command lines or terminals for months. Like I was sweating all the time. I couldn't trust myself. I put like show commands, shaking. And eventually I got back to a point where I could trust myself, right? And like that was 2011. All the way to now, there's some changes that give me the same feeling of, am I gonna break the whole network with this change? And I'm like, okay, but now I kind of think ahead. And if I know that it's possible, I have a rollback plan written down with a command so I don't have to think. And I tell people so they also can like check the configuration and we're all on the same page and we do it more smoothly. But always having the thought that it's okay to make mistakes. And I'm gonna keep on making mistakes because it's part of learning. And I didn't learn that while growing up because I was hard on myself. Not like my parents, not my teachers, me. For me, making a mistake was not acceptable because I had to be perfect. Because that's the only way you can like get success in life. No, I'm sorry.
It's take her dog to work day.
Oh
cool.
yeah, so it's yeah, my dog is here and she's vocal. Ven acá, mi amor, ven acá. Can you be quiet, mama? Thank you. So, so the thing is, I have like a couple of things that I have to remind myself every day. I'm a human. I made mistakes. It's gonna keep on happening, and I'm gonna learn from them. I can get frustrated. That's also okay. I can cry, scream, and kick, and not be like perfect and like chill all the time, because that's also okay. And to forgive myself and to like love me more. We are usually kinder to others than to ourselves, at least as women and as women in IT, I feel like. And sometimes we're not as driven to just jump into something because we're not completely sure if we're going to make it right. And sometimes it doesn't matter that it's not 100% right, but that it works. Right? So if it works and then you can enhance it, it's also okay. That's why we do patches on OSs. That's why this is how the market is driven on our field, right? So that's one thing. Something else that I had to learn was that being less feminine doesn't make me smarter. That's kind of part of like the mistakes that I made early age. I thought that I had to dress up as a man and be tough and like talk lower pitch so I'll be successful on the IT career. That's ridiculous. I don't do it anymore. I come all pink with red lipstick and I'm like, I'm here. This has nothing to do with what is in here. And it works. And if you can handle this, that means that we can work together. Like you have to deal with how I feel. What else? Yeah, so the whole thing about self-love is I have to treat myself as I treat the people that I love, as I treat my dogs, as I treat my sister. And if I'm not doing that, I have to fix it. So when the whole, oh my God, no, you screw that up thought comes by, I'm like, what happened if it was my sister that made this mistake? What would I tell her? And that I tell me. And I'm like, did somebody die? No. Did you die? No. Are you going to jail? No. That means you're fine. That means you're good. You got this. And yeah, so eventually is I still make mistakes. I recover. If I need help, I will ask for help. Asking for help is important. It doesn't make you vulnerable. It just is human. And yeah, like we cannot get success, whatever success is for each of us, if we are not on a team, if we don't have people that we consider that they got our backs, that when we don't are on our 100% health mental state, they're not there to kind of like pull you apart and be like, remember, you're a badass. You're doing stuff that like less than 1% of the population is doing, and you're amazing. So all of you there, you guys are amazing. You came with the whole, oh, women don't do engineering, women don't do IT, and you're proving everybody wrong. And that makes the next generation not even have to think about it. So whenever you're having a bad day, think about that. That little kid that wants to be like shooting rockets in NASA is gonna go straight for that without having to think that women are not allowed in certain areas or certain careers, because we're doing it like we're building those roads that they're gonna walk through. That's kind of it.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And let's see, did I have it in my, yeah, if you haven't heard the full like dramatic telling of it, you can go to the Moth Radio Hours website. The Second Chances is the show where I first heard Navrioska talk about this. And it was just so thrilled to be able to find her on the internet. And you know, so that's a hugely major mistake. But did it make it any easier with other mistakes that you've made now because you lived through something so drastic?
Yeah. So I always compare my current mistakes to that one. And let me think about this. I don't think none of them have been as bad as that one. So it's kind of good that it happened early on, because I always go back to, it's not as bad of when I blew up both our reflectors and we couldn't do anything and I have no idea what to do and I was sweating and almost vomiting, and nah. So if it's like high redundancy and I blow up one, we good.
And like, what I love from your story,
the other one is still working.
Yeah, so you had a plan to how to address it. You developed rollback plans every time, and you reached out and you asked other people for help, which are great strategies.
Yeah, that's kind of it. We're not alone. Extra pair of eyes are always important to have. In any field, I feel, and in our field, it's even more necessary because sometimes we're just tired. So something that you have done 100 times come end up wrong just because you're exhausted. So maybe you're missing a comma or a dot, or I don't know, you have a
Semicolon
that doesn't end. And yeah, somebody else while checking that for you, that's perfect.
That's great. Okay, so Denise, let's go ahead and flip over to you. And if you want to tell them a little bit about yourself also.
Sure. Navrioska, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Kathy, thank you as well. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here.
Do you want to be on video?
Am I on video?
No, your camera's not working.
Yes,
it's
you're
not?
on video. It's
I
working.
am on video. Can you guys see me? I'm waving my hand.
Oh, okay.
Good.
I don't know if the others can see you though, but I can see you.
Oh, maybe there's some ship. Okay, yeah.
No worries. So when I think of mistakes I've made at work, there's actually a guiding principle I have that I carry with me into my work. And it's two of my favorite F words that are 4 letters. And they are fail fast.
Yeah.
That is my kind of premise of how I work. And as Kathy said, I am new to the tech world in the sense I've only been at Microsoft for 10 years total, 1 year as a vendor and 9 years as an employee. And before that, I had a full career, about 25 years in nonprofit and actually in church work. I worked as a musician, a choir director, a music director, and a director of worship. And in directing a large gospel choir, I said to them, I only have 3 rules. 1 is follow the director at all times, whether that be me or somebody else. 2, there are no mistakes, there are only great recoveries. And number 3, when in doubt, follow the director at all times. I'll let them guide them. Because basically what we did every Sunday, we basically operated in a process from start to finish, and our goal was to help empower and lead people in worship, similar to a process and not be in the way, but to facilitate that. So fast forward, I needed to transition to a career because I could not sustain myself financially in that former career. And I always wanted to, if I had to go to corporate, I always wanted to work at Microsoft. And so it took a while, I had to work in other jobs, but I finally got here. And part of my favorite mistake is actually getting here. The recovery from my mistake was never giving up, because my transition took some persistence. And I love numbers. And so let me just give you a couple numbers of how I got here to Microsoft. 45, 9, and 1. 45 job applications, 9 interviews, and 1 job offer to get 1 blue badge. And so my favorite, and I truly believe that if I had to bring skills that I learned in one career that had nothing to do with tech, but it had everything to do with tech. How I deal with people, how I understand a process from start to finish, and what is the outcome and result that we have to do, and who is the customer, who are we serving. I also knew that if I got in, I would be able to do it. I trusted in myself. But I just needed someone to give me a chance. And I've had really good managers at Microsoft that have empowered me to be my best and bring my best. I also knew that I would make a lot of mistakes in learning, in growing in this company. And I knew that I had to be willing to be humble and to own my own errors. And then to keep asking questions and seeking clarity and keep showing up every day. It's like I work with such incredibly gifted and talented people. And I know that I'm challenged to bring my best self every day. And the best part is that if I fail today and I am gifted with tomorrow, I can show up at the table again and to keep learning. And that was an opportunity to get better. And so how can I fail quickly so that I can keep learning and growing and keep supporting the team and the company? Now, internally in my career, and even to this day, I still have doubts. I still go through mental gymnastics of questioning my skill. If mental gymnastics was an Olympic sport, I think I would be in medal contention. And I also know I still do this. I deal a lot with the imposter syndrome. I'm not an expert in that area, but sometimes I will walk about, oh my gosh, do I deserve to be here? I mean, it's like, I don't know anything about tech. What am I doing here? And mentally, my mind would spin like that. And then I'd sit in a meeting and I would ask a question. Well, have we thought about what are some of the inputs before why this process is broken? Or then get feedback from people that say, hey, that was really helpful. Or when you ask this question, maybe ask it a little differently the next time. Learning to grow that way. My favorite mistake in the company was about my 3rd year in, I was expanding, growing from one area of operations to the bigger operations of the company. And my manager asked me, hey, we got a project. Can you drive from start to finish this training program for the operations team, which is several thousand employees? And I'm like, sure. I went at it. I got instructions, kind of what are my parameters, what are the deliverables, went after it. And I noticed that in this 3-month project, I kept running into snags of leadership going, why are we doing this? Pushing back. And I couldn't for the life of me. I thought I'd check in with my manager and I'd say, we have deliverables, things are going. I even got the corporate vice president for audit to do a video introduction to this training. What is the problem? So we were problem solving, and she said in a very simple, matter-of-fact way, she says, did you get like a sign-off charter email from the corporate vice president for operations? And I thought, my eyes got really big, and I thought, well, when you asked me to start this, you said this program was already started. So I assumed that was there. And so in a very gentle way, she was saying that was probably the #1 deliverable you needed to do. But meanwhile, she says, and I thought, well, I have in my notes, we were talking about that even with the CVP and the corporate vice president for operations, and she was all for that. And she said nothing was documented or sent out to people. So the leadership in the middle sort of missed that memo, literally. And it was a huge learning for me. And so I thought, oh gosh, this could be it for me, 3 years at Microsoft. No, again, it was that sense of that mental gymnastics. She said, no, the next time think about, here's some things to think about. If you're starting something forward, think about the other things behind you as well. So teaching me, learning, my mistake was helping me learn to try to have a 360-degree view of my work and to keep expanding my view as opposed to thinking just down in a silo. And so I also have to confess, I am a recovering perfectionist. So I am always beating myself up. And so I keep, like kind of Navarowski, what you said, I have a big family, and I think, what would I say to my sisters or my nieces and nephews? I would coach them in a way that's empowering, just as my managers coach me. To this day, I have very good managers and colleagues. So I have to keep telling myself, I need to keep coaching myself that it's okay. And the other thing is, the great thing is, I love coming to work every day because I thought, I am going to expand my mindset. I'm going to learn something. I'm going to grow, and I'm going to make a mistake, but I'm going to learn from that mistake to keep going. I think it's when we fail from mistakes is when we stop showing up at the table. So I'm excited that people are on this call because, yes, as Navarowski said, women here in tech and doing amazing things, that we just keep showing up at the table. Don't let our internal negativity sometimes or voices or critic keep us from showing up at the table. So the sense is that the great thing is just to step up at the next meeting, the next program, the next opportunity, because they're there. The more mistakes we make, the better we get. And I think that we keep growing and keep learning. The minute we fail is the minute we stop. So don't stop, keep going. And no, there are no mistakes. There are great recoveries, and we're learning how to recover quickly. So thank you, Kathy.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, at Microsoft, since Satya Nadella took over as the CEO, he has really tried to institute what they call growth mindset instead of fixed mindset. And growth mindset is the idea that, yes, you can only, like Navrioska's boss had a perfect growth mindset to say,
just
well,
a mistake.
That's how you learn. And he knew that you weren't going to make that mistake again. Whereas people with fixed mindset would just go.
And let me tell you, culturally, back like 10 years back in Dominican Republic, that was very uncommon. So in any other job, I will have lost my job and probably not get hired again, because it's like the second biggest ISP, right? And if I wanted to network, I had 3 options, 2 big ones and a tiny one, and they all know each other. So it'd be like, oh, that's the one that blow up the network, not gonna hire in that one. Nah. So I think it's important also because eventually we're gonna be managing people, and we wanna be that person to teach that other person, or kind of like lead through, not have the, oh my God, no, blame mentality and the, oh yeah, it's a sport. So you fall, you come back up, like learning how to ride a bicycle, exactly the same way. And then
Brilliant. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about mine, but then as I was thinking about this topic, I actually was able to break down some of the things I've done and even give like a couple little, mnemonics to help remember with this one. So mine is I had organized.
Kathy?
Yeah.
Is this Kathy Moya?
Yes.
Kathy, hi, it's Bill Lamont.
Oh, hey, Bill. I got to kind of keep on my timetable here.
I just want to have a 2-minute share because you invited me to come. The thing
Bill,
is,
I just invited you to come as a participant, but I will be talking about your stuff in a little bit. And maybe if we have some time at the end.
I want to validate your women in a way that they're probably never validated. So that's what I'm really here for today.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm so glad you could join us. And I have a slide that talks about something that I learned from Bill that's really helped me a lot. So
I'll sit and hang out.
Okay. I had to put together an event, and I was going to have a very high-level executive speaking to the people who were attending the event. And I had never interacted with anybody, like over the layer of, like maybe my skip level manager. That was about it. So this was like my skip level manager. And so I didn't ask for help. I figured, well, I'll just do this, and this sounds good to me, and was putting it together. And then I got an email from my skip level manager saying, can we go back and revisit this? And I really can't tell you what else is in the email, because at that point, my brain froze, deep freeze. I didn't actually read the rest of the email. And what I didn't realize is that he had actually taken the time to go through and provide some feedback and suggestions in the rest of the email. But I was so panicked that, when all he said at the top was something about, can we talk about this or something, I just wrote, sure, and I sent it. And then he was actually feeling very disrespected, like I was being flip, which was not at all what I intended. And so I had to get my manager involved and his manager. Let's see, it was my manager, his man, and so this guy was 3 layers above, dealing with the guy who was 4 layers above. And it really threw me. So I managed to get through planning the rest of the event. And then afterwards I went and did, kind of like my mea culpa meeting that, we set up through my manager and his manager. And then I just totally lost it and broke down in that meeting. And it was one of those, bathroom moments. Anyone else have one of those bathroom moments where I realized that I just needed to take a step back and look at a lot of things in my life and do some things differently. So I've been on this really long odyssey of discovery, and a lot of people have helped. And I realized that, the most important thing is when those events happen, because yes, I am a recovering perfectionist also, and I immediately want to go into shame. And that was what happened when I saw that email in my inbox, and I let that take over. And if I'd taken the time, I wouldn't have compounded, my initial mistake wasn't so bad, but I definitely compounded it with other things that I did there. So I realized I have this acronym that I've been using lately to help me with this one, which is, first of all, pause. Don't do anything except maybe breathe. Breathing is okay. And then really accept what happened, because trying to pretend that it didn't happen doesn't help. It's, it's not a part of reality to say that, what I did. And give that moment with the pause to say, okay, this happened, maybe even stating kind of what happened, because sometimes my brain freezes up in a way that it doesn't see what's really there. And then compassion. And the book that I've been reading right now, I haven't quite finished it, but it's The Mindful Path to Self-Compassion. And we'll share these slides, and I have a slide that has all of these covers on it. It's a book that's really been helping me right now to have compassion for myself and also compassion for the people I'm dealing with. And what I hadn't realized is that the person who sent me the email had some issues with the executive that I was having to speak, and I just wasn't aware of all of that context. And so after I knew that, then of course I had a lot more compassion for him and what was going on there. But even just in that moment, just as part of the first aid, to stop and have some compassion for myself about whatever it is that's going on. And then naming the emotions. And I'm someone who has struggled a lot with emotional intelligence and mindfulness of my emotions, and being able to just stop and say, oh, I'm scared. Or so I forgot my laptop this morning. I got into work, I'm getting out of the car and realized my laptop was at home. And, so it's like, okay, well, what am I going to talk to people today about? So I paused. I accepted my laptop is home. There's nothing I can do about the laptop, but I can at least, accept that it's there. Some compassion for myself. It was kind of a rough morning with a couple of things and some rough stuff last night. So I said, I'm afraid. I'm frustrated. I was disappointed in myself. And at wasting that time and not having time to come in and check my email before a call I had to do at 10:30. But just, that moment, and I've been practicing that even when it's just little things like the laptop, because I know that the more I can build that muscle, it's going to help when I hit another mistake, and, no matter how big the mistake is, I think it's something that can help. So then another thing that I think is really important is after the shame spot, so not in the moment, they talk about being flooded where all the emotion is going on. So later, after things have calmed down, really stopping and thinking about what happened. And what helped me with this is, I work on a service called Microsoft Intune, and we have these incidents that happen on the network all the time, like the thing that happened to Navrioska. So we have these reviews that they call post-incident reviews. And there's actually a link down there at the bottom where you can go and see how we talk about our post-incident reviews that we do. And it's really simple. It's what happened, very briefly. Then we get to what was the root cause and What will you change so it doesn't happen again? And, we've had things that happen on our service that's like, well, that was human error, and human error will always happen. So how can we eliminate human error? Or do like Navrioska was doing, where she's looping in people to take a look at and double check what she's doing, if it has to be something that is totally human, or scripting it and having a backup plan. And there was a time I had to send a bunch of communications using the Microsoft Message Center to people about the Intune service, and it was very complicated. And I had several different messages that I had to send based on which error conditions applied to people, and ended up sending the wrong message to the wrong people. And so I was able to stop the shame spiral when I was able to take a breath and realize, okay, I need to tell people this happened, but I put it in this PIR format. So I said, hey, I sent the wrong information to these people. The cause was I had all of this data, and I actually didn't get very clean data from the PM. Now, so, it wasn't 100% my fault, but I still had to take responsibility for what was mine and say, yeah, I didn't check this. I didn't, double check this. So in the future, I'm going to work to make sure that I have clean data, and I'm going to get someone to take a look at it. And, no one said boo. No one got upset about it. For me, I felt like the world was falling down, but it was just like, oh, okay, well, this happened. And the more I've been able to put things in this format, the easier it's been for me to be able to keep going. And then another piece of it is really making sure that I'm owning what's my stuff, but not more than my stuff. I tend to be very over-responsible. I want to take, it's like, oh, you had an accident on the freeway. I'm so sorry. Was there something I said to you that caused that in some way? And it actually even caused a lot of issues with my marriage, where my husband would be upset about something, and I had to think it was all my fault. And then I would make it all about me and not about him and what he was dealing with. So one of the books that I read as a result of, this journey of realizing I really wasn't very happy. So I read this book called Authentic Happiness by Martin Seligman, who is the father of positive psychology. And he has a bunch of different books that are really awesome. But one of the things he talks about is what he calls this disputation process, that we tend to tell ourselves a lot of stuff that is not necessarily true when things happen. So he has what he calls the ABCDE process. And it starts with looking at the adversity. So what happened? I sent the wrong mail out there. The belief, immediately, most of us just jump to the what we tell ourselves. I forgot my laptop. Oh, I'm so stupid. I'm so unorganized. And, the voices pop up. I've heard people call it radio KFUK in my head. And, I don't need to listen to that. I can change the channel. Because the consequences, if I tell myself that I am, I'm stupid and disorganized for forgetting my laptop, well, the consequences, I don't feel good. I'm not going to be at my best for being able to do the call today, which I really need to show up for. So, in letting those negative beliefs carry on in my head is never going to lead to good results. So, and actually writing down what are the consequences. And then the really important part is the disputation. What is true and what isn't? I am not disorganized. I am one of the hella most organized people you are ever going to meet. And so to tell myself that I'm disorganized is not true. And yeah, there were some contributing factors there, but I can just look honestly at what's true and what isn't. And sometimes, going through that PIR process is part of that energization. So ABCDE, what am I going to do next? What am I going to do differently? How am I going to make a change? Because then I'm really living in that growth mindset, as opposed to the, oh my gosh, I screwed up, I'm horrible, which is not true. So this is a really great process. You can read that book. It has a lot more about it. And then Bill, who's hanging out on the line here. I don't know if we'll have time for you to talk or not, Bill, because we'll have to kind of see how the timing goes. But I took a seminar, a several weeks long class from him, where I was really able to get in touch with my true self and my true purpose. And one of the exercises that he taught us was, he said, your brains are like computers. So just like Navrioska was saying, like Denise was saying, we don't have to live with the same programming. And so Bill has this process, and I'm sorry this ended up coming out kind of small, but he calls it the completion process. And I thought about, okay, what is my pleasure about this subject? because I really want to look at this from all angles. And then what is not the pleasure about this subject? And what I'm really trying to do here, actually I should back up. What I'm really trying to do with this completion process is isolate the root cause of something that's going on in my life that isn't working. And when I can find that root cause, then I can do this completion process on it. And I can change that because our brains are plastic. And like Navrieska was saying about updates, we can patch our brain. At Microsoft, we have patches to the operating system all the time, to our services all the time. We don't completely throw away the operating system just because there's one bug or 100 bugs or 1,000 bugs. We look at the bugs. We say, well, how bad is that bug? There's still bugs that we don't fix because we say, well, it's not going to blue screen or it's not going to impact customers unless you're in this really narrow kind of thing here. But if it's something that's really serious, if it's going to blue screen, you got to figure out, okay, what is it? And then we just change that little piece of it. So that little piece in the completion process, if I think about what is my pleasure about that, whatever it is that's happening in my life, what is not my pleasure, are there people I need to apologize to about this? Because again, part of owning my stuff and not more than my stuff is taking responsibility for things I may have done or said that require some kind of apology or an amend to my behavior. And then who do I need to thank, starting with myself, about this subject? And then anything else that I may need to say to be complete about it. And then, to really just say, okay, I'm complete and I'm going to reprogram my mind. And so the idea is, kind of looking back from the future, if I was going to install a patch to this operating system, how would it look? How are things going to work differently? And the more specific I can be about what the issue was in the first place, then the easier it's going to be coming back to, looking back at this from my future self to see how this is going to happen in my life. And one of the things I realized as a result of doing this completion process is I realized that I was looking at the world like if I could just get it to this one perfect moment and freeze it in plexiglass, that everything was going to be okay and that I was going to be safe and that nothing would ever hurt me again. And that is a belief that I was finally able to say just is not helping me at all. So I had to think about, okay, well, what is a pleasure? Like it gave me this illusion of safety, but what is not my pleasure? It's not safe and it's not real. Because if you think about it, even plastic, given enough time, will eventually begin to degrade or change in some way. But everything changes, everything grows. And trying to freeze it like that is just not healthy. It's not a good way to go through life. So, I really had to apologize to myself for the years where I've tried to just twist myself into positions to make it that frozen perfect moment. And I also needed to thank myself and also thank teachers like Bill, who'd helped me with this process to be complete here. And then, as part of my completion process, what I realized that, I'd had this frozen in plastic moment, like one of those little things you might buy at a souvenir store, that's just like completely encased in plastic. And so I was able to replace that with a skateboard. Because I thought about a skateboard as this wonderful dynamic image where, it's in motion and we're always trying to balance on it, right? Not that I can actually skateboard, but mentally I gave myself a skateboard and just vision myself now zooming through those moments. And yeah, I'm going to fall off sometimes and I know how to pick up the skateboard. I know how to get back on the skateboard and I know how to keep going. So we can change our beliefs, we can change our process. So Bill's book is called Born to Lead. You can check that out. And maybe at least after the call, also, if we have to stop it at 1, but if we have time before or after, then Bill can talk a little bit about, some of the process that he does. Now, I also wanted to talk a little bit about potentially toxic environments, because there's a lot about vulnerability now. And one of the books that I'll show in a minute, if you've read any of Brene Brown's work, or if you've seen her Netflix special, or if you've seen her top 5 TED Talk about vulnerability and shame, and she talks really about a lot how it's important to be vulnerable, because that's really how we grow. And she does a lot of work now with organizations to help them learn to be vulnerable, because that's how you get to that growth mindset, and that's how you make more positive changes. But there are toxic environments out there. Now, Navrioska was in a great place where they did not just, her at least immediate manager did not give in and just throw her out. So I wish those were everywhere. They are not. And what I want to say about that is, a big piece of the idea of getting women IT pros together is so that you have a network, you have a backstop, you have a safety net of people who maybe you just make a connection because, you were both from Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
You find out, we live in the next town over, or, we work on the same kind of projects. Build those connections, because if you need to get out of a toxic environment, we want to help you. Reach out. Maybe you have to kind of obfuscate things on the diversity and tech forum, but we have that user groups thing. You can talk about what you're going through and you can get advice from us. Or, if not that, there are other sites that you can go to. Oh gosh, what is it? Gabi, what's the name of the one I told you about that I'm blanking on?
Nonviolent communication.
Oh, nonviolent communication is excellent. It's that site for women that I told you about. Is it Glass Slipper something?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll think of it.
God.
We'll pull it up.
It'll come to me.
Yeah. So there are a lot of resources that are out there, and just like Navrioska said, you are not alone. We are all awesome. You have women here who can help you, who can at least, hold your hand until the bleeding stops from whatever shame spiral you're in, and help turn that around for you. So you don't have to stay in a toxic environment if you're willing to figure out what you need. So
I was going to say, do you have a list of the books you just read?
Yes.
Thank you.
Here they are, all in pictures. Authentic Happiness is where I got the ABCDE, and I'll post this deck, and we'll have the recording up on the tech community site. The one I'm reading right now, The Mindful Path to Self-Compassion. They didn't spell out the PACE thing. I put together that acronym from some things, but it's a fantastic book, and I've been doing a lot of work on mindfulness right now. Nonviolent communication is a great way to get really clear about how to ask for what you need. It sounds like it's going to be, how to de-escalate, gang violence or, Middle East conflict. And the thing is, it's the same principles. It starts with ourselves and getting clear about what we're feeling and how to ask for what we need. And that has to happen all the way up to world peace. Bill's fantastic book, Born to Lead. He has some great ideas about how we can get in touch with our true selves and really bring that to work. Anything by Brene Brown right now. Gifts of Imperfection is the one I threw up there because I felt it was most accurate. I haven't seen her Netflix special yet, but it's on my list. Her TED Talk I've seen multiple.
I'm currently reading Dare to Lead.
Yeah.
So it's very good.
Great. Search Inside Yourself is actually by a guy at Google who breaks down the science of meditation, because one of the things I found about mindfulness and meditation is they are really important in being able to find that pause when everything goes south and being able to take that breath. And so there's a lot of science behind it. If you think it's all, just kind of this airy-fairy stuff, no, he really breaks it down. So it's kind of like explaining meditation for engineers, and some really great insights there. Loving Kindness, Sharon Salzberg was also a contributor to the Mindful Path to Self-Compassion. And loving kindness, meditation, and exercises are things that have really helped me break through those shame spirals. And then Switch has a great book about changing human behavior, which can include changing our own behavior. So it's a lot about that plasticity and change. So we do have a couple of minutes. I wanted to see first, are there any questions in the chat window or anything that anybody wants to come off mute and ask of me or Navrioska or Denise about some of the stuff that we went through? Anyone? You can type, you can come off mute. No, we nailed it.
So in the meantime, we have no questions. So I have something that came up to my mind while you were talking about the whole mindfulness and like self-growth and taking the time to pause. So another big mistake that I made early this year on my current job was not communicating enough because I was overwhelmed with a lot of work. So my bosses didn't know what I was working on because I was always working and not like taking the time to give them visibility over my task. So I was called into a meeting with my direct manager and my director, and they were super upset over like, we don't know, like, you're not working, you're not delivering, like, we don't know what you do. That's kind of like what I went through. It wasn't exactly those words, but that's how I felt over the feedback that they gave me. And I got so mad because I've been like putting a lot of hours and effort, and how is it possible that they don't see what I'm doing, right? And I was so upset that I didn't talk, and I told them that I needed a break. I was like completely honest with them, like, listen, I understand what you're telling me and I accept it because that's how you feel. I don't agree with you, but I need time to breathe and then we'll come back. So give me a day. That was like a Monday, and then I was like, give me a day, and then on Wednesday we meet again. And I took that day and a half to recenter and like kind of see everything that I've been doing from their perspective. Am I really not communicating enough? And they were right. Like, I was working my ass off, but they didn't see it. And the result was, we don't feel like you're working because we don't know that you're working. And I had to switch a bunch of stuff on my end to communicate more like beyond just Jira tickets, because I don't have time really to just track everything that I post on Jira, right? So now I meet with them often. They have visibility over my deliverables and my projects and everything. And the whole mood changed because we're sync. And it was as simple as saying, if I don't know what you want from me, I cannot prioritize. And I'm here because I love what I do and I want to do the best I can. So we're all on the same team. We just need to like let each other know what the expectations are. And now we're doing great. But I thought in that first meeting, my first thought, and this is all about my Latina going first, and I was like, you wait, what? Like old telenovela. I wanted to quit right there. I wanted to be like, oh, I don't work. Bye. Have fun. Enjoy all the things that need to get done. Bye. But that wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I was smart enough to like acknowledge that I was being upset and taking that moment to recenter. That's really, really important. And that took years too. I was sanguínea. How you say, like, my blood was first and my reason for the longest period of time. And now is one of the first time on my life that I feel like I get upset, but I don't act as often because it happens. It's gonna happen. But I don't react as often as before because I know I'm human. So I kind of validate if I'm hungry and I know like this is not a good moment for you to communicate nothing. So take a break, recenter, and come back with your real self and then talk to others. And I think that's also like a really important tool to use. If you feel that you're getting hit up, that's not the right moment to talk. And it's okay to let other people know that you need some time to recenter and come back and be your true self, cheerful, upset self, but true self, and not let your blood talk for you.
And I just salute you for having the courage to do that, because how many of us would feel comfortable doing that? Okay, maybe after hearing Navrioska say that she did it and she's still working,
Right.
you know, that yes, you absolutely can ask for what you need like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I strongly recommend it if you are in a relationships. It took my husband and me many years to learn that. And now, you know, we definitely have the timeout rule. When we are flooded, we say no. And we just celebrated 21 years of marriage. So, you know, it helps. The other thing that I'm going to mention is our May IT Pro Call. I just put the link in the chat window. We had Miri Rodriguez coming and talking about building your personal brand. And she had some great aspects on that one. So I'm thinking about what Navrioska was talking about, where people didn't know what she was doing. And it's really important to know how the people who have some of your fate in their hands are perceiving you, what they think about you. And so she has some really great ideas about that one. So that recording is up there. If you go to any of these recordings, or if you go to this recording later after we post it, you have to go to the Diversity in Tech forum, and then you have to register as part of the whole techcommunities.com, and then you have to join the Diversity in Tech forum. And then once you do that, then you'll be able to see all of the recordings that we've done. And I have a list of them up there on the Women IT Pro site, so I can put a link in the chat window when I have a few minutes to type and not talk. So we have a couple minutes. Any other questions or comments? Anyone,
If I can make a comment too, both you, Kathy, and Navrioska talked about like just taking that time, that pause. I'm a huge sports fan, except baseball. I don't like baseball. For me, it's like watching paint dry. But I remember listening. It was one of those things. I just had ESPN on, and I heard someone explain this one manager for a baseball team, and he says that pitchers or baseball players, when they get traded, they think of that as a failure. Most of them get upset and really mad. And he has a rule that he brings them in their office and he says, okay, you have 20 minutes, or I can't remember if it was 24 hours or whatever. And he has a clock and he says, you can scream and yell and cuss and everything you want to do and be really mad to me in this room, what you need to do to get it all out. And he says, after this time is up, it's time to go to work on this team. And so he says, clock is ticking, so go do that. And the baseball players were talking about that got traded to that team actually said it worked because they were able to vent their frustration and in a safe place. And then once he was done, he says, there's no judgment here. It's over, and then let's move on. And he talked about the transition of baseball players getting traded to his team were pretty successful. And I think that sense of that pause or that time out that we give ourselves to kind of recenter and refocus is really valuable. And to be able to say, and feel safe enough to say to our team members or our managers to say, hey, I just need a moment. I need some time. And I can be a much better self if I take this time to deal with that. So even in baseball, they deal with that.
That's great. Well, we're really happy everyone could be here. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but we can hang out and talk for a couple of minutes after this one. Do introduce yourself in the chat window if you haven't already introduced yourself. And do join us in August, September, October. We have calls happening all the way through November. So, and we will take December off. But we got some great content, and we really just hope that you can come and join us and bring friends.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. It's great. My first